Thank you, Mr. President, and I ask that my remarks be printed in the journal.
Without objection, so ordered.
As we begin this legislative session and learn every week more horrific details about what happened on January 6th, I just wanted to share some of my thoughts. In D.C. that day, not only did the domestic terrorists say, "Kill him with his own gun," as they beat an officer, and chant, "Hang Mike Pence," as they stormed the building, but they also said they're supposed to shoot BLM, but they're shooting the Patriots. A black police officer at the Capitol was called the N-word 15 times that day. They had Confederate flags, nooses, gallows, and Camp Auschwitz sweatshirts. We cannot ignore the direct link between the insurrection, efforts to overturn the election, and white supremacy. Unfortunately, the racism, anti-Semitism, and violent rhetoric was not new. 4 years ago, white supremacists marched in Charleston and ran over counter-protesters, followed by Trump saying there were very fine people on both sides. But hate goes back to before the founding of our country. But it is now, though, that we have to not just talk about a reckoning around race in our country, but do something about it. As the dust settles, accountability must come before unity. And in that unity, if we fail to address the underlying issues that led to the insurrection in the first place, then we are not doing our job. We must tackle the racism and white supremacist notions that continue to pervade. We must address inequities, particularly in our justice system, and we must always continue to uplift the ideals of a democratic republic and stand for the truth. We ran for office not to be politicians, but to be public servants, knowing that it would be hard. Our job is to listen to our residents, and sometimes we need to tell them the hard truths, even at the times when the politics of our positions may make it harder to do so. Part of our job as public servants is to call out wrongs and injustices when we see them, and also to address the causes that led to those wrongs and injustices in the first place. So when we reflect on the insurrection, of course we need to talk about security in our buildings, about the fact that we had the most secure election in America's history, but also we must talk about the visible difference in police response to Black Lives Matter protesters compared to mostly white insurrectionists. We must talk about the fact that law enforcement officers from other jurisdictions were among those rioting. We must talk about the fact that some officers were taking selfies with the insurrectionists and others helped them get into the Capitol. And we must talk about the urgent need to address police violence in our communities. I want to remind everyone that we can both honor our law enforcement who do heroic acts of service every day and push them to be better and to address racial injustice. We can thank the officers who saved lives that day, mourn those who were killed, and push our systems of policing to be more accountable and transparent too. The Michigan legislature failed to get a single police accountability bill to the governor's desk last year. That is a shame. So in 2021, we have a choice. Do we continue to entertain falsehoods about the election and do nothing about police violence, or do we act boldly, stand up for the truth, bring accountability and transparency to our police systems, and root out racism from our policies, institutions, and in our society? I have always believed that big changes were possible. So let's recommit ourselves to this hard and important work and get it done. Thank you.